Hello.
Yeah.
Can you all hear us?
Oh, they're not coming?
Yep.
Great,
Oh, okay.
thank you very much. We will, what time do we have? Is it?
5 o'clock.
Okay,
All right.
I'm gonna leave us unmuted and actually I'm gonna take this
I thought they
over
were
here.
Okay. Are you ready?
Yep.
Okay, let me call the meeting to order. Is who's taking minutes?
Dorothy.
Dorothy, okay. Oh, Dorothy on?
Yes, she is. Dorothy, you on?
Yes, I'm here. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm here.
Can you hear us okay?
Can you hear us okay, Dorothy?
Yep, everything's good.
Okay.
Okay.
So good evening. I'll call the meeting to order. I'm Sheila Amber, and I chair the committee. Let me go around and introduce ourselves. Michael?
Mike Corsi, I'm vice chair of the committee.
Will Beagle.
All star.
Jennifer Kaufman, you all know me.
Okay, Katie?
Katie Tony.
Okay. And let's see, is Ida on? Is that Ida? No. Okay, and our guests will be introducing you shortly.
We also have Allison Maynard from Director of Human Services.
Oh, yes, Allison, so nice to
Yeah.
see you. Okay,
Hi, everyone.
very good. So we'll get to you very quickly. Our guests who are presenting, we just have to get through our minutes. We had two sets of minutes, one from the April 5th regular meeting and the May 18th special meeting.
I'll move acceptance.
Second.
Once I wrote it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Opposed? Abstained? Okay, that's
Just your thing.
This is yours, but I was wondering if we could share.
Yeah, sure.
I got a feeling
Oh, you have extra one? Okay, good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there anyone on here from the public who'd like to say anything? Okay, thank you very much. So tonight we're going to have the development group for the Middle Turnpike, 497 Middle Turnpike, 262 family units talking with us, presenting, and I think we'll have questions for you. And so would you folks like to
Just as a note for
Okay.
Dorothy, the first item under new business A, the Villages at Four Corners is tabled for this evening.
Okay, So we're up?
Introduce yourselves and
yes, I have a presentation, so I'll share my screen. Then we can do introduction.
just a little bit louder if you can. Or get closer.
I have a presentation. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Not very well, though.
And your name is,
My name is Jacob Intel on behalf of the applicant.
Great.
Okay.
We just turned up the mic, so
did you want to introduce who else is with you, Jacob, tonight?
Yes, can I pull up the presentation and then we can go through everyone? Would that be okay? Or do
Yes, Jacob,
Okay.
you should be a co-host now.
Okay, great. If you can't hear me, I could put on a headset.
We're good.
No, we're
You're all
good.
right.
Okay. All right, so you met myself, Jacob. we have Ella Cole from Bell Point. They are our partner developer in this deal. And from our land use council, you have Joseph Williams from Shipman and Goodwin.
Good evening.
You also have my partner Chuck Lay calling in all the way from Barcelona right now. He is on the developer team with us as well.
Poor guy.
Their life's hard.
So we'll go over the property and the location and the project first. So our address is 497 Middle Turnpike. We're on Middle Turnpike and at the corner of Cedar Swamp Road. We are within the Four Corners area, part of the new sewage infrastructure that was recently completed. And we're also like a 5-minute drive from the UConn campus. We have about a 63 acre site, as you can see here outlined in yellow. I'm sure a lot of you drive by the site today. So it used to be a 9-hole golf course now, and it had a clubhouse restaurant as well as a retail building. All those buildings have since been abandoned and dilapidated. So we have a retail building here in the front, had many uses over the time. And then in the back left corner, we had a clubhouse restaurant. And we also have a 1,000 square foot maintenance shed in the back behind this retail building. The rest of the property is just overgrown grass, cracked pavements, and golf netting. This is our proposed site plan. In total, we have 262 dwellings, studios, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and 3 bedrooms, as well as 3-bedroom townhomes. We have 11 buildings on site over about 15 acres. So even though our site's 64 acres, we're only building on about 15. All that was previously disturbed by the golf course. So on the next slide, I'll get into it, but we have apartment style buildings, which have elevators. We have 3-bedroom townhomes, and we also have mansion style apartments, which are intended to look like one single family home, but they have multiple units in them. We also have indoor resident amenities. We have a fitness center, co-working lounge, or co-working spaces, entertainment lounge, package room with cold storage as well. And outdoor, we have walking trails, we have grills, outdoor lounges, outdoor open space with games and other recreational. And we also have a fenced-in dog run as well. So we wanted to bring something new to Mansfield. So we have 3 different style apartments, or 3 different style buildings. So we have these 3-story apartment style. They have elevators and there's apartments on both sides of the corridors. We have townhomes, which are 3-story, 3-bedroom, and they have a nice outdoor rooftop as well for each unit. I do want to mention on the apartment styles, a lot of the units have balconies as well. And then we have mansion style buildings. So again, they're intended to look like one larger single family home. These are really unique. A lot of units have their own garages as well as loft features. So I believe we're the only developer in town proposing this style and focusing on middle density housing. Here is a rendering on the northern section of our site. So we have an existing pond from the golf course on site. It's not in the best shape right now though. So we are refurbishing it and creating benches and a walking path around it. And you can see all 3 building types in this one rendering. You have your townhomes here. You have a section of your mansion style homes here. And you have a snippet of the side of an apartment building there. So our goal was have as many different types of units as possible so we can hit as estimate as big of a demographic as possible because everyone wants something different. But we did want to maintain the cohesiveness of the site. So similar materials were used on all buildings and other unit finishes, things like that will all be the same. This is a view as you're driving down Middle Turnpike. This shows the apartment building in the front, as well as you get a better look at what the mansion style apartment building will look like. All right, so now onto the affordable housing. We have our development proposes 52 affordable and workforce housing apartments, which will consist of 86 bedrooms in total. All units will have the same design features and finishes. There's no differences. They're dispersed throughout all 11 buildings and on every floor. So we have 261 apartments in total, 39 affordable, which will be at an 80% AMI, and 13 workforce apartments, which will be at 120% AMI. And we have 209 market units. So I will actually pass it over to Ella Cole here. She has a ton of experience, which she can talk about in affordable housing and talk a little bit more about the process.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me here today. My name is Ella. I have about 30 years of experience in overseeing multifamily housing. 25 of those years have been in Connecticut, and in very much similar to this type of development. I've worked in primarily Fairfield County with the administration of similar affordable housing programs as well as workforce housing. I've probably done about 14 different developments. In the most recent towns were in Norwalk, but also in Stamford, in Trumbull, in Darien, and in New Canaan as well. So that's primarily where my experience comes from. Again, very similar to this plan that's been proposed for this development. And I believe you have a copy of the plan, and I'll be happy to entertain any questions you might have about it. But it basically starts with, especially when as a brand new property, it starts with the advertising and marketing of the property to collecting applications from those that are interested in the affordable and workforce housing units, and then interviewing those applicants and going through their paperwork and income verification for whatever they've provided, of course. And then, of course, afterwards, it leads to the actual lease paperwork, including the riders that are attached as part of the schedules in your plan packets. And after that, we stay with them because we'll be there managing the property through their renewal time. And every year, they go through a recertification process, which is based on the standards that are set within the plan as well.
So I think there are always some frequently asked questions. I think Ella answered how we market the affordable housing. So we send it out in local papers, get the word out around town, local organizations, and get everyone to apply that is interested. Again, what happens if a affordable resident's income changes? There's a yearly recertification process, like Ella just mentioned, and do market rate and affordable units have the same finishes? The answer is yes, there are no differences. That's really the whole presentation. I wanted to leave it over to everyone for questions.
Okay, let me just thank you so much. Ella, I particularly wanted to ask you the developments that you've worked on. You mentioned Fairfield County. Were they in towns that required a certain percentage of affordable housing?
Yes.
So I'm assuming that they would also be in towns where your primary market for the other units isn't students, it would be other people. Other working,
It
whatever.
depended on the city, of course. In Stanford, we actually had the Yukon campus not too far. It was added, it's newer, obviously, than the Stores campus, but that was one of the places. Other than that, we had a lot of community colleges in the different various towns.
Well, so let me then ask you, what was your marketing then for the affordable units to assure that it wasn't just students who were occupying them? And who actually is occupying them in Stanford and the other places?
I forgot, Trumbull also has a big housing with Sacred Heart University and Fairfield University nearby. So that was also a natural magnet, if you will, for students as well. And to your point, these are market rate and affordable rate housing. For fair housing purposes, we can't discriminate based on age. However, in the plan, you'll see the different income eligibility. And quite honestly, in real life, what happens is they just naturally get edged out because the affordable unit is required to be their primary residence. They have to have proof of income coming in. There's just natural levers in there where the housing, the way that the plan is written is more useful to families and others and not natural for students to seek out. They're really seeking out the lowest price housing that they could possibly get, and often it's with roommates, and it's just not usually an issue. That said, I can't discriminate against age, of course, so.
Go ahead, Paul.
Why did you choose Mansfield as a place to build?
I'll let
So one of our,
Jacob answer.
yeah, so one of our partners went to UConn and he saw a big opportunity in the town. He loved the town, and I think there's a lack of housing, market and affordable housing. So
One
we-
thing I'd
we
like
thought
to
it
point
was a-
out as well, one thing I'd like to point out as well, this partner that Jacob's referring to, when he was studying at UConn, his commute to find any sort of housing that was available to him required a 40 to 45-minute drive just to get to class back and forth. So the housing is the predominant issue. And for us as developers, this is where we think providing the housing, especially in a town that is putting a sewer in place, because specifically there's a housing issue that's causing a lot of students to end up in traditionally residential neighborhoods, and causing some consternation from that perspective. And so one of the core issues that we see is that there's just not enough housing. You know, you have students driving 45 minutes just to get to campus to go to class, right? So whatever housing becomes available, such as some of these home buyers that buy a single family home and rent out by bedroom to students, that is a problem. And that's why we saw the ability for us to leverage, our relationships, our ability to execute on a project like this. And with Bell Point's help and Ella's 30 years of experience, we feel like this would be a great place for us to help solve that problem.
Do Stanford and or Trumbull have a maximum number of unrelated people who can live in a single apartment or a house? I mean, Mansfield is 3.
Yeah, I've seen I'm just trying to think back. The typical occupancy per apartment, for example, on a 1-bedroom would be 2 people. In 2 bedrooms, obviously 4 people. In 3 bedrooms, 6 people. I believe Norwalk had that type of limit if they were unrelated. I very seldomly ever saw it actually enforced.
To have a definition of family like ours, I think.
Yeah, well, we have this, 3-person limit per.
Right.
Yeah,
we only have 3 bedrooms as our maximum apartment.
Right, but Ella was just describing 2 bedrooms with 4 people,
well, that,
which wouldn't work here.
no, it,
No.
yeah, they have to.
No,
comply.
it might if you had a family.
Correct, yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I thought it was
New
interesting.
York City has that rule too. It doesn't get enforced, but
Unrelated, that's why. Families related.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Right,
You emphasize in your proposal, providing options for families, young professionals, and empty nesters looking for something in addition to the traditional apartment living experience, though I suspect that's not going to be your main market. But on the other hand, if it would be good to see something far more specific in relationship to a marketing plan related to how, as our zoning regulations state, how you're going to reach the least likely to apply. So a lot of the folks who, older adults, for example, who, whose incomes have gone down and they can't afford their homes. And they, they could afford perhaps an apartment, at the rents that you're showing. They're not gonna see that in the newspaper, really. There's only one little newspaper
Yeah,
here.
one newspaper.
It's in
yeah,
the
yeah.
Willimantic Chronicle, and so there have to be other very specific ways of targeting those where those folks might seek information.
Can I ask you a question on where you feel the best sources of marketing would be?
Well, I would be interested what you've done elsewhere, but we have a very active senior center here. We have a housing authority, which has programs for both moderate income families as well as for older people, and a Section 8 program. So they're gonna have folks that they can house. Our social services department in town, sees 2 or 3 people a week that they can't find apartments for, whether they can afford these, it's not clear. There's, Craigslist, there's a neighbor Facebook site, a Nancy neighbor Facebook site. It seems to me that there just have to be a lot of creative approaches to try to reach those folks who, because people are gonna see this really beautiful place being built, they're gonna say, I can't afford that. They're just gonna not even check, they're not gonna even check. And
Would you have any objection to maintaining what would you call it? An inventory of vacant units with our housing authority and or our town government in some way, so that people who are coming to social services or to the housing authority for help would have an easy way to identify that you have available units?
Jacob, if you don't mind, I can
Hey, go ahead.
talk about this a little bit more. So the list of areas that we would reach out with the newspapers is just to make sure that we're covering those that may not have access to the internet in their homes potentially, right? So the newspapers are for that, but the marketing program is in no way limited to just that. We often reach out to everybody at the town hall, and typically there's a just email distribution within the town halls. We would absolutely start with the housing authority and make sure that they have all the packets available and can give it to anybody who they already know is in need of housing and may be interested in it, of course. We go to the police departments, we go to the teachers, we ask all of those email distributions for those that work with the towns are a perfect network for us. We will absolutely go to seniors. These are 52 apartments. These will not be rented like in a snap. To your point, the information needs to go out there. The other part is we're also 80% of the units are market rate apartments.
Right.
Not everybody who calls us is going to be able to qualify, and that automatically turns into a conversation about, hey, maybe you qualify for our other programs that we have, with the different income restrictions. And they can be tough to fill sometimes, and it takes time to do. I can tell you though, typically it will be about a year before they all get full, although the wait list will be huge. People will raise their hand and say they're interested and start filling out and sending applications. And it takes a lot of time and effort to go through. As you can see, there's a lot that's required of them to provide the verification of income and statements and bank accounts. I mean, getting ready for our taxes takes us so long, right? Imagine filling out an application for affordable housing and workforce housing. So it takes some time to get through the process. Plan is written to be a first come, first served. So the process there is everything gets time and date stamped when the applications come in, and we just start working through those applications as they come. Initially, it's interesting because initially this is new construction as well. Sometimes our time frame of when we're delivering the apartments is not going to meet up with somebody's who's raised their hands and gotten onto the wait list. So those are some of the other issues we have to work through. But from a marketing perspective, like I said, there's so much marketing and advertising that goes on. We have no interest in letting these units sit vacant for long.
Could you tell us a little bit about how you're going to prioritize the selection once you have all these applicants for the affordable housing units?
Yes, in the plan, you'll see in section 10, it states that it gets prioritized when the application is completed and completely submitted. And again, it gets date and time stamped. So it's literally a first come, first process.
So I was really interested, you said in the description, the intent of the affordability plan is to quote, follow HUD regulations with respect to income certification, as such regulations may be amended from time to time. So I would assume, I don't know if others, if you're familiar with HUD's definition on the eligibility of students for assisted housing under the multifamily housing project-based Section 8 program. It's a definition of when students can be eligible for Section 8. So it pricked my attention when you said you're going to follow HUD regulations with respect to income certification. Would this be something that, I mean, it might be an area that, you know, we think is important to begin to define eligibility related to these affordable apartments.
So
And
I'll let,
I think go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'll let Joe speak a little bit to that, and I'll follow up if there's any additional questions to that.
Yeah, and I and my firm have prepared similar affordability plans to this one for probably about 30 years. And I want to commend each of you for your interest in affordable housing, because it's something I've worked on a lot over my 28 years. But the reference I think you're referring to, Madam Chair, is in our footnote there on page 3. The HUD regulations we are referring to are the ones that we gave the citation for, Title 24 of the Code of Federal Regulations, Section 5.609. Those regulations provide a process, and more so a list and description of the types of information that the affordability plan administrator will request and obtain from an applicant, a potential tenant, to then determine if they would be income qualified. And that information is all laid out in the schedules. Let me just get to it. Schedule B to our plan, the definition and elements of annual family income. You can see the reference to the HUD regulation there. And then Schedule C, documentation of income. So what is counted as income, and then specifically what documents you look at. We refer to the HUD regulations because it gives this robust guidance. The HUD regulations are not in any way binding on this development or on the town of Mansfield, but they're good guidance. We use it in pretty much every plan like this one, just to give some clear standards for the person who will be talking to a tenant as to what makes up your income and what kind of documents do we need to see to figure it out. So those are the regulations that we will look to from HUD for guidance as to determining family income. So then the answer to your question is no. And Ella and I checked in with each other about this before the meeting. We haven't used, I've never used in this kind of development, that HUD document that your staff sent over to us relating to qualifying students. The reason principally is I hadn't seen the document before and it's a long one, but it looks like that document pertains to the Section 8 housing program and deciding whether or not a person will be eligible to obtain a Section 8 voucher. And private affordable housing administrators aren't involved in making those decisions. I mean, they will accept a Section 8 voucher as income toward a unit, but the private sector doesn't decide if you qualify for a Section 8 voucher. That's a governmental determination, usually goes through the housing authority for the town, and they may talk to HUD if they need guidance on it, which ultimately oversees the program. That's a long-winded answer to say no. That the administrator of this plan, the owner of this development, wouldn't be authorized, and I would advise them, to be very careful for fair housing purposes to try to figure out exactly whether or not they can accept a student for these units. You just have to be qualified under the elements that are in the plan, and they have to follow what's in the plan and the Fair Housing Act.
Well, for example, the reason I think they're worth looking at, and I have read them in some depth, some background in this, but is that they're talking about how do you actually define the income of someone who is applying to be in the affordable housing program. Obviously, you're not administering Section 8. So, for example, students who are full-time enrolled students under 24, they said, who are would have to qualify income-wise, obviously, for the affordable unit that you're going to have, but that needs to also include their family income, their parents' income. Since many of these are full-time students, they're not working full-time. And the issue is, how do you take into account then their family income? These particular Section 8, they make exceptions. So if you have a student who's homeless, a student who's disabled and who meets the income requirements, a student who has a child, it's a way to make this, it's a way to start thinking about how do you do these rentals for these very few affordable units we're going to be getting in this community from these developments, make them so that they are reaching permanent residents, of the town. I don't mean permanent for their life, but particularly families and with children and older couples.
Well, I mean, that's a fair point, and it's a good question. And it's something that we can take a look at, and we can see if there's anything, in the program that HUD applies to the Section 8 determinations. Is there any guidance in there that will be useful to our administrator ultimately in determining income? So there's nothing wrong with us looking at it. It's just, it's a complex, obviously, set of regulations. It's even a complex summary. So it's not something that we've parsed through in depth because we just got it late this afternoon. But we will take a look at it and see if there's anything in there that would be useful.
All right, thank you. Will, Michael?
Yeah. One of the much needed things in this town is senior housing. You guys have any plans on making age restricted units, or are we in with the mix of everybody else?
No, they're family units. They're not proposed to be age restricted, although they're also not proposed to exclude anybody based on age. So, seniors and all persons who would otherwise qualify are welcome to apply and to be evaluated.
And part of your advertising plan, your marketing plan is going to be to reach out to the local senior organizations and all the other related agencies that seniors frequent. So
Yes,
Yeah.
and we'd welcome any list or distribution that you think we should add to that as well. But we do reach out to the Housing Authority also for their feedback and their recommendations.
Yeah, these will be heavily marketed online. Whether you're driving by the site, you'll be able to find information pretty easily. I just also want to point out, so we're in an opportunity zone here, which means we have to our partner Ella at Bell Point, they focus on opportunity zones. And why this is important is we have to hold this asset for a minimum of 10 years. So we're looking to have residents who want to stay with us for a long time. And we don't want turnover. We want permanent residents who are going to treat these buildings nicely. So just wanted to point that out.
Well, that'll be interesting. It'll be interesting. I mean, it would be interesting if your overall marketing plan, you're marketing to the broader community, but. Yeah, Will, did you?
There's no reason we wouldn't market to the broader community. It only hurts us to target specific.
Have you, well, I guess it's too soon yet, but you mentioned the housing authority. They are, and I'm sure you probably have people who are expert at this too, but they are quite expert in looking at who is income qualified and doing those recertifications every year. And I don't know if that's, and I'm not talking for them, by the way. So I don't know if that's an area you could be discussing, working with them on. It's the issue of, I think one of our concerns, it doesn't mean that you're not going to be really faithful about that, but is the town oversight of that process of the recertification of people who are in the affordable units. I mean, I read your plan and I understand what you say you're going to do.
I don't know.
I think Ellie wanna. I think
I mean, I personally have a level of depth of experience in overseeing the administration of this type of plan. And it's a little too soon. We haven't decided exactly if we'll be hiring a third-party property manager yet, but there's also third-party professional services that do this level. I don't know if the housing department offers this as a service themselves, and if they do, that's something we can certainly speak with. I see that they partner with another management company for Holinko and Wright Village and the Eagleville Green as an example. And again, I'm not sure if they do that as a third-party service, but we're willing to certainly speak with them. The ownership of that, I believe, though, is with the owner and with the administrator of this.
Right,
project.
yes, right, the legal responsibility, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there other questions?
I had one question, actually. It's more like a preference I want to express. I noticed that the distribution of studio, two bedroom, 3-bedroom units, in my opinion, for the purposes of affordable housing for families, looked a little light on the 3-bedroom side. Would you have any kind of any objection to shuffling things around a little bit so that without increasing the number of affordable units, but was making another one, for example, a three-bedroom unit?
so. We follow the proportion. We have to make the affordable mix proportional to the market mix. So that was the.
Oh,
Well,
I'm still asking my question.
So we're going to follow the proportions of what we proposed unless there's a problem with it.
Jennifer?
I think that in the regulations, it sort of highlights how many, what the unit mix needs to be.
Yeah.
And so I have to look at this, but I assume, Jacob, that the unit mix of affordable units is proportional to that unit mix that you have put out there, right? So you've got, 17%, let's see, or I'm seeing what Paul is saying.
Yeah, well, I'll speak for me.
Yeah.
It's all right. When I look at this little chart, which I'm sure you cannot see, but you have one.
I think I know a chart.
Yeah.
I bet you do. The percentages are, like 0.8. Of course, those numbers are not real numbers because you can't have 0.8 of a unit. I mean, these are mathematical calculations attempting to comply with the code. I understand all that. But the math for 3-bedroom units puts you on the round up side as opposed to rounding down side from the studio and one bedrooms units. And so I guess all I'm asking is whether you'd be willing to round one down, a small one down and round a bigger one up.
Yeah, let me, can we get back to you on that? Because we have to do we have to look at it on our end as well.
Of course. I'm just trying to look out for families here. You understand?
I understand.
Okay.
Okay, any other,
So it says, the affordable units have the same design as the market rate. That's correct, right?
Correct. It'll be exactly the same.
So I'm assuming the affordable will have access to all the amenities also?
Correct.
Okay.
And oh, I also noticed that you have a Schedule A was your distribution of another page you can't see. Distribution of the units, which doesn't quite match up with your drawings. Because I think the second column on this chart might have gotten shifted down one place or something.
Yeah,
It's out of.
that's true. We updated the chart and that will be submitted on our.
So yeah,
on
but
our revision.
I like the mix of units in general. It was a nice, it's a nice blend of affordable and market rate. And and frankly, it's a nice blend of the kinds of buildings. We don't see this kind of proposals here. Usually it's like a big, beehive kind of structure with giant.
Yeah. Yeah, we've been working with the town for over 4 or 5 years now on this project. So we've taken a lot of input, and that's kind of how we got to this place.
No, it's evident. It's very evident that you've been listening. So I just want you to listen for a little longer, I guess.
I have a question, and maybe this is for Ella, but so, and I think this committee has talked about this. So you have a group of 3 students, okay? They come in and, they make each $5,000 a year. And so they're coming in and they're trying to qualify. So if in fact their family income would be, at or below 80% AMI, then, of course they would qualify to live here. But how I'm still unclear as to how that works in your application process. So, because that's generally how things work around here. You get 3 friends who apply for an apartment. They make very little money. So how does that?
This is very different than that. And it's really hard for me to hypothesize off the cuff, but 2, there's so many other details that go behind that. If it's not automatic that the family would be able to qualify, right? And let's just assume that they can't, because when you've got 3 individual roommates and their families, that's too many people, right? Again, this has to be their primary residence. That's the first filter.
Okay, that's good to know. So this is all information that it's really.
could be their, but it could be their primary residence. It could be these 3 students hypothetically.
So, yeah, alternatively, I'll give you a different type of example. I have seen situations where we have adults who have no family. They're young adults in their 20s and they're working full time and putting themselves through school. Sometimes they're a part-time student, sometimes they're a full-time student.
Yeah.
In some cases, again, it depends on their ability to be able to pay for the unit, of course, right? And be able to qualify and prove it too, by the way, because there are some professions like waitressing and service restaurants where they rely a lot on tips and they can't prove their income level, right? Because a lot of it is either cash and or unreported, and we can't use anything that's unreported as verification. So my point is, it's really hard to hypothesize, and it's very specific to each individual. We really dig into the income verification because we want somebody there who truly needs it.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's why, and I think that may be one of our recommendations, but no, I was very impressed with what you put forward. I just think we're probably looking for more specificity in a marketing plan and how you actually reach those who are least likely to apply, which is, I think, what the zoning regulations state. And then also looking at some process for income certification so that you really are targeting. It doesn't mean that the affordable units can't go to, say, graduate student with kids or young, even undergraduate with a child, or it goes to people who are really in need. So looking for some more defined process, and that's why I suggested looking at some elements in that section 8.
If you really look at Schedule B in your plan, it's really pretty thorough. It's really hard to get past that as just, listen, I have a child who graduated from UConn 2 years ago and is working professionally, I'm proud to say, but it's really difficult for him to afford housing, even though he has a great full-time job in his degree field. And that's one child out of 3 that I've had in college in Connecticut State Universities recently. So my point is there's a lot that goes into this. It's really difficult for students to be able to qualify through this process. I'm not going to say it's impossible. It is extremely rare.
Under Schedule B,
Yeah.
which is called definitions and elements of annual family income.
Mhm.
What defines a family? Is it the 3 people who show up who want to live there? Or is it like, a more traditional family? How do you define the word family? Is it, what if it were 3 students, unrelated, of course, who were all just, independent and emancipated, or whatever the term is, and just wanted to live together? You would deal with that. You would look at their combined income and
Individually, yes, anybody over the age of 18 years old can apply. And then we start the process of digging into each individual's circumstances. And if, again, they all have to qualify the same way, they all have to prove this is their primary residence, they all have to be able to prove income to be able to afford the units. They have to pass their credit checks, have positive prior landlord screening, they have to pay a security deposit. There's a lot.
Also, a lot of students are still technically dependents, right? When parents fill out their tax returns, they have dependents. A lot of reason why you would keep someone as a dependent. And if you're a student, you make no money, you're a dependent, family income is your parents' income.
yes.
All right, well, that was.
That's important.
That's very important.
That's very important. And it's also interesting. I mean, basically, if you're going to apply on your own, you're going to have to prove that you have 80% AMI. And that's going to be really hard as a student,
Yeah, you're
right? I mean,
Right. I was thinking the same thing, Jen, that if it's students who make $5,000 a year, you're going to look at their income and say, you can't afford this unit. But if they say, well, I can afford the unit, I'm going to be getting some help. Well, then that now counts as part of your income, and you have to look at the whole thing, like Jacob said, and Ella was explaining, so then that they may become disqualified by virtue of who's helping them.
right. So the bottom line is I think for the Planning and Zoning Commission and this committee, if I can speak based on what I've heard from you, is that understanding that there are a lot of checks and balances here. And I mean, I think you understand the intent of the zoning regulations that we want people who really need affordable housing to be able to afford to live in our town. Because we do have a lot of members of the community, and more every day. Allison Maynard is on the line, and we were just having a chat today about how many evictions there are in our town right now. So there are people in need of affordable housing. So we just want to make sure that there are checks and balances, and that the people that really need it will be able to live here.
Right.
Well, I think that's very well said. We agree with it. I know my client is excited to bring a really sizable amount of affordable housing to Mansfield by adding 52 units. And it's a very good point, that we want to make sure, as Ella and Jacob both said, that it's being marketed and being made known to as many people and as many different demographics as possible. So I hope I can speak for everybody on our side. I have no problem with the idea of us going back and maybe listing a few of the ideas of places that we're going to make sure that we make the information available to, or that we go and we ask to help us spread the word, that sort of thing. And we could just include that, in our follow-up submission that we're going to be making.
Okay. Is there anything else, everybody? Thank you very much. I really appreciate your
Thank you.
coming,
Thank you.
speaking with us.
Thank you all. Nice
you
talking to
very
you.
much.
Bye.
Okay. So before we close this out, it'll be, it's the question of, recommendations that we may want to make to the Planning and Zoning Commission. And,
I'll just kind of give a little bit of a preface on what other committees do in terms, and you guys will need to figure out your own process. But generally, when a advisory committee is presenting something to the Planning and Zoning Commission or Town Council, it would start out with, overall, if you agree and you support their affordable housing plan in this instance. And then you could, if you have issues, then I would give them very pointed issues to address. I will be forwarding those to the applicant before I'd like to have the applicant have the courtesy of looking at that and changing their plan, because I think they demonstrated that they were open to do that. So, but I think it's clear and concise as you can be. It will be very helpful to the applicant and to PCC.
As I was not supposed to be saying before the meeting started, I've written up kind of a template, kind of a format for responding to PZC.
Mhm.
It's just in the format of a letter that's compartmentalized with different subjects. So it's just addressed to Paul Aho and the commissioners, and it says, we've received a special permit application by CMC Soares SPV and met June 1st, 2023 with principals Jacob Intel, Ella Cole, and Chalk Lee, and their attorney Joe Williams to discuss their application's provisions for affordable housing. That's a sort of, then we can make, if you want, a general statement that says, overall, we think it's a,
Viable.
plan. And then I was gonna,
Viable,
that's viable.
viable is good enough.
you don't want to be too complimentary, right?
Well, okay, all right, okay.
All right, overall, we find it to be a viable plan. I'll just add that sentence right in there, and then I'll go into the next thing.
Sorry.
Give me 2 seconds. Of all the developers I've seen in my brief time of looking at this stuff, this developer is the most credible. That's not, for a
I'm not
developer.
saying they aren't. I just think the proof's always in the pudding.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, let's see what they do with this.
I think we're all sort of cautiously optimistic here, right?
Yes.
This is the first time we have the standard, and we're gonna see how they have, a good amount of affordable units there. And now we're moving toward this new, complying with this new regulation, 15%.
It's a big
So
chunk.
basically 20% of their units have to be restricted.
Katie,
I just wanted to let you know that if you have any concerns or want to voice any opinions, you need to send them yourself. I cannot talk for you on behalf of Planning and Zoning because I have been served with an abutters notice because I live in Rolling Hills and we are technically abutting it.
Mm.
So I'm going to have to excuse myself from any discussion that they have. I'm going to listen to it all.
Well, if you don't have a vote.
I didn't get,
Yeah, but he's not on Planning and Zoning. So when it comes to them coming,
okay,
I just can't do it. So
right,
I'm stressing to you, get your letters into Planning and Zoning, get your comments into Planning and Zoning. I can't do it for you. I would if I could, but I can't.
okay.
Well, yeah, I think it's for us, it's good to have it in writing and
Right.
nailed down.
of course it is.
Yeah.
So let's
Good
go.
reference.
So-
You needed
so-
reference, yeah.
After I just wrote, overall, we find this application to be viable. Damning with faint praise, perhaps. But actually, I think it's a little more than viable, but that's fine. And then I put a subhead and I said, set aside compliance. This application's affordable workforce housing plan meets the zoning code's requirement that 15% of the project's 263 units be affordable.
62 units, isn't it?
62.
It's
262.
It's,
20
one of them is
29
a house.
affordable and 13.
One of them is a house.
Yeah.
right?
Units.
Okay, just stand by.
We're standing by.
So this is why we need editors. 262 units be affordable. The 39 affordable units include a proportional distribution of studio, 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units in both apartment style buildings and townhouses. I'm wondering whether we could work in some language to kind of bump up the number of 3 bedroom units. To
Not here,
accommodate.
let's wait for a specific recommendation.
Yeah, they said they're gonna look at it.
Okay, well,
Yeah, I
okay,
think we
if we
should-
don't say it now, we're never gonna get
So
this.
we have to put the rec-
you can put the recommendations in.
We would like to, we could say we'd like to see one more 3
Right.
affordable 3 bedroom.
Right,
Yeah,
Okay.
We'd like to see the unit mix switched so that
Yeah,
there's whatever.
Right, stand by again. Oh, crap. Without a mouse, I'm really lost.
The little red button.
Oh, yeah, well, I know how to do that. We would like to see the unit mix include one more 3 bedroom unit. Oh, we could say in exchange for a smaller, in exchange. Or smaller.
to accommodate, more families with children.
Right. How about I say a more family friendly
Okay,
3 bedroom unit?
right.
Just tighter. That's all. Exchange for a small. Okay, exchange for a small. All right. I threw in the sentence, I don't know if it's necessary. The applicant must maintain this number at all times, even if some tenants of affordable housing lose their eligibility for affordable housing.
No, they've covered that. in
That's
there.
covered, okay, that's why,
So I
Yeah.
don't-
all right, we'll take that out. Okay. Also, next sentence is the applicant proposes to physically build all the set aside units as the Affordable Housing Committee prefers and recommends.
What do you mean?
They're gonna build all 15%, no fee in lieu, no
Right,
alternative
right.
compliance.
Yeah, that might come in for a density bonus, so you don't know that.
They already said in their plan that they don't want one.
They don't want one. Oh, they did say that.
Yeah,
I don't
she
think
said,
they can get them because they're in the RAR 90 zone.
Okay,
They're not eligible for them.
okay.
Okay,
And yeah,
all right, so the next section, that's all for that section. The next section is the Affordable Housing Marketing Plan. What I've written so far, in which we can amend. The plan for marketing the affordable units as they come online does not currently say so, but should include provisions for those potential tenants who are least likely to apply. It doesn't use the language least likely to
Right.
apply.
Right.
Right.
In fact,
We
So,
recommend that they develop a much more specific and targeted marketing plan
Okay.
to,
so I mean, part of this is, do they know us well enough to identify the avenues they should use? Or are we gonna provide these to them?
I have a sentence here that can help with that.
they should.
Let's hear the
know that
sentence.
There's neighbor Facebook sites everywhere. They know about Craigslist.
Yeah, okay. In addition to general advertising, the applicant should perhaps be required to provide the Mansfield Housing Authority or some other government office an up-to-date inventory of its available affordable units and its applicant waiting list.
Allison, did you want to say something?
I would just love my department to be included in that, in addition to the housing authority.
Oh.
So
Yeah.
human services, yeah,
Human Services.
thank you.
Town
Housing
offices,
Authority.
parentheses. Name them.
human services and other relevant
Yeah,
town
yeah, yeah.
offices. So I think we really need to speak directly about the human services.
Right,
'cause
right,
they're-
Yes, I agree.
And then that would cover youth services, senior center, we're all kind of all encompassing, and then social services, so.
All right. All right, so it's how it says, in addition to general advertising, the applicant should perhaps be required to, maybe you don't need the perhaps, right?
No,
I don't
We'll
think-
get out of the perhaps, no perhaps is,
Yeah,
you might as well say it to mean it. These should be required to provide the Mansfield Housing Authority, Human Services Department, and other governmental office an up-to-date inventory of its available affordable units and its applicant waiting list.
I think human services should be first. Rather than a Mansfield Authority. They should
Yeah.
be first on our list.
Yeah,
Gonna make me use my mouse. That is okay.
Wonder if we should say Board of Education as well.
Oh, okay. Well, let's do it.
Board of Education,
Why?
Mansfield Public School, the Board of Education would
What?
have,
What are they gonna do?
Would they,
well, I mean, you think about who
They-
they're interacting with.
I know, but do they?
Well, you have a lot of the school nurses and the school psychologists who work with human services to.
Well, and I'm just thinking of even Shamim's position. She is the McKinney-Vento liaison, so she would be the one managing the list of any currently homeless families in town. Yeah, so it would be absolutely helpful to them to have access to it as well.
Paul, I don't know. I think we don't have to.
We don't need a laundry list.
What I
right?
would
Yeah.
suggest is with. Perhaps we can clean up the language afterwards, but that's our intent. Our
Okay,
intent is that they have a much more specific marketing plan
yes,
targeting those town agencies and other resources where people are most likely to be identified.
okay, so what I have now, just to refresh. The plan for marketing the affordable units as they come online does not currently say so, but should include provisions for those potential tenants who are least likely to apply. We recommend they develop a more specific and targeted plan. In addition to general advertising, the applicant should be required to provide the Mansfield Human Services Department, Housing Authority, and other governmental offices an up-to-date inventory of its available affordable units and its applicant waiting list. A list of all affordable units could also be maintained on the town's website. Just an idea.
Yeah, all right.
All right, so
Um,
any more on the marketing plan?
No, okay, that's okay.
yeah,
Um,
nice.
And then the next category is assuring eligibility for affordable housing.
yes, and I don't know how. I really think there's they said they're gonna look at it, but I've read these several times now. Section 8, it's pretty straightforward, actually. It's many, many pages. I read first the summary. I made reference to that, not what we talked to planning and zoning about. But what is your thought about this, Jennifer? I mean, that we think, go ahead.
Well, I think, I haven't had, this is complicated. I haven't had a chance to take a deep dive. I mean, it relates to section 8, right? So I don't know. And I think one thing what we always try to do in planning and zoning is we need to put this on the applicant, right? So you can ask the applicant to review these guidelines and see if there's a way that you can strengthen
Income certification
income certification, because I think
and definition of who's eligible.
right, so that you just want to make sure that there are checks and balances, like we said, so that the folks
Which
that,
is great, actually, I thought, but
right, but I'm not sure if it's,
yeah.
I don't know if it's legal or not. I really don't.
Well,
I'm not an attorney.
So we would say that it, I think we could say that we strongly recommend that the applicant look at the definition of eligibility for students under section 8 in terms of strengthening
I would
income-
reference that.
In terms of strengthening their income certification.
Yeah.
Process of, for students. I mean, it sounded like they were ready at the point where, you're gonna look at family income, you're gonna,
Yeah, but to get it in writing here would be good.
I'd be interested to hearing what the officials say in Stamford or Trumbull about their. And notice that Stanford near the Yukon campus, Trumbull near the Sacred Heart campus,
Yeah, it's all.
It's all-
Right, all through.
college magnetic draw, Okay, we strongly
well, I
recommend.
have the name of it, it's been on my list to call the woman who heads the Stanford Housing Trust Fund. To call her and ask her, so that would be one of the questions I'd ask.
Define its criteria for eligibility using as a reference the
Eligibility of students for section, under HUD, under section 8, I think you can.
HUD standard for eligibility for
Of students
students,
for section
students. Section 8. Or for the section 8 program, actually.
Yeah.
We're not supposing that they qualify them for that, only that these standards be put there to, as a guide.
8, right?
Okay. Anything else?
No, I mean, I guess, I mean, it's just that the final, when they start recertifying, and they were very specific about that in their plan. About when they would be checking people's income, also requiring people to have a change in income, to notify them. So I don't know that I don't know that I would. read it this
They
way.
seem to have a pretty good grasp of that in their plan.
Yeah, they sounded more, their plan sounded more credible than what I read on.
I wrote a couple more things based on my reading. One of them was that the project administrator, which is them, must use special care that all applicants and tenants are screened to ensure they qualify for, this is kind of a general statement, they qualify for affordable housing. Particular attention should be given to enforcing the quote definitions and elements of annual family income as identified in the applicant's application Schedule B, which is theirs, and the documentation of income outlined in Schedule C. So they make a pretty good case
Yeah.
here, but I think we ought to, in writing, hold them to it
Okay,
so that they,
good.
they like it, we like it,
Okay.
we all agree to it.
It's on the record.
And it'll be built into the plan that way.
Right.
Right.
And then the last thing I wrote was the applicant's calculations to determine maximum rents for units of various sizes are in conformance with state regulations, which appears to be the case.
Yeah, I mean, those are state regulations in relationship to how they figure the 80%. They're
Yeah,
using
it's
the
all
HUD.
spelled out in the state statute.
Okay,
It's a formula.
okay.
It sucks, but it's what it is.
Mhm.
They followed the regs.
They did. I
They
mean,
did, yeah.
I've looked at other applications for a long time before I was even lived in town, and this one seems to be pretty solid, actually, given the circumstances.
Are you still?
I mean, they vary the kinds of buildings and not just putting in a giant thing. They're I'm not trying to sell us that it's multifamily when it isn't, because it actually has some multifamily
Yeah.
components. So of all of them, this one seems to be the
They have
The
spent a
nicest.
lot of time working with us.
Although look at some of
We
the,
put a lot of time.
did you look at the drawings of the buildings? There's that 100, that one long skinny building.
Yeah.
It looks like looks like the Days Inn in Fort Lauderdale. It's just a
Okay.
long skinny
Building
building.
100.
All
Yeah,
right, so
it's got little boxy, little tiny little.
So-
we've
units.
got to move on. We got a lot of the
Okay.
agenda.
Sorry.
Okay. So can I have a motion that to accept the letter, the draft the recommendations as presented?
And that I think the draft recommendations as presented and authorize Paul Stern to formalize the letter with the
Yeah,
staff.
I'll clean it up
Submission to
and
planning and
and you'll sign it and away we go.
I'll move it.
Okay,
I'm good for it.
Bill, second. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Did it save on this?
unanimous, okay.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Paul.
Good to have a journalist on.
It's nice to have one.
Really is.
Yeah,
You guys have no idea how lucky you all are to have each other so committed,
Well,
really.
yeah, we all have different strengths. which
You
is
really
kinda handy.
do. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, really. So just, I'll just make the announcement later, but it's not anything, just a minute. All right, so let's,
You have one item, the procedures for special meetings.
oh, yes,
So let's see, just, I think it's Dorothy, are you there? We had talked about that together about just making sure that it's a moving target and it's a lot to remember, but just make sure that you know, when you're having a special meeting, there are no staff here, but just make sure you're staying on the agenda. The minutes are good. But you guys have done a great job filing your minutes. Dorothy's done a great job posting them. But just making sure that you guys know FOI, just make sure you follow them because you don't have staff here reminding you.
well, are we? I mean, is there a problem?
Dorothy and I had mentioned something just about adding something to the agenda or something, but it escapes me, but just a
Okay.
general overall
Alright.
friendly
It
reminder.
was, I'm sorry, Jennifer, it was just, we had canceled the room on the 18th
That's right.
because we thought it was gonna be strictly Zoom, and then
yeah.
the recording came out that you guys were there as well as Zoom, so that's all. I would hate for the room to get canceled on you guys and then another group be there as well, and then suddenly there's two people wanting to the same room at the same time, and staff's not there, to Jennifer's point, so that's really.
All right. We just have to read our emails, but,
Yeah, and actually read the documents
Yeah,
that come.
you gotta
to us
read
in
the
the
top of the
email.
email too. Yeah.
okay.
There's a lot of them too.
All right, so, I think, I know things I know my June has gotten extremely busy, but I want to get to the priorities for the Housing Trust Fund. I think bring extra copies. Also, but that we have to, at some point, if we can combine, if it's, do we need a motion to do that? I want to combine this future meetings with old business. So I want to, because this is all in one piece, it's all here and what's up here.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Um,
You just all we need is a motion.
Yeah, move to
right?
combine.
okay, so,
Yeah, I moved that we combine section 8 with section 5.
okay, second,
Second.
okay. Paul, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay, opposed, thank you. Yeah, because we, obviously have a lot to chew on, so we want to continue to work on that Housing Trust Fund prototype fee application. But I think, personally, I would recommend that we start, that we try to look at our priorities, adopt what our priorities are. That we develop a report for the town council related to what our concerns are and talk about, methods for funding, maybe the Housing Trust Fund. And I don't know what else we might be, and also the talk to them about the process of the trust fund application and how that works.
So would you go, I did speak with Ryan today regarding the fact that this committee would most likely want to come to a council meeting to do the presentation, which you did a great job with at the Planning and Zoning Commission. He had said July would be a good time. They only have one meeting in August. So if you're able to do it in July, otherwise we could push it to the fall, whatever.
I'm
you
gonna be in
think.
Iceland part of July, the middle part.
Yeah, that's the other thing. I want to see what are we gonna be.
There's lots of vacations happening
Yeah.
for me.
Right. Yeah, it could wait probably for the fall. I just,
What exactly would be the mission of going before the council? To give them our general concerns about things or to make specific recommendations for specific things? I mean,
well, for example, we can come up with priorities related to the Housing Trust Fund and where the emphases of the town should be in affordable housing. But we're only advisory. We can't make those the priorities. The council can make those.
and the council has the power to fund the housing trust fund, in
Yeah.
addition to everything.
So I think they're looking to you to develop those priorities. So you're gonna want to present those priorities to them and request that they review them and adopt them. They may have amendments, whatever, they may want to establish a subcommittee to look at this more closely, but I think you want them to adopt a set of priorities.
Yeah, but there are two sets of priorities. One is getting the money in. How do we get the money in and what is the system for that? And the other is letting the money out and to whom does it go? And then what is the criteria and the priority for that? So,
I think the first one really is getting the money out.
yeah.
Right.
So
Right.
because we have 1.7 million or whatever now, how are we gonna spend it?
And when the budget comes around, then you're gonna just say, you need to put some more money in your budget.
Yeah.
Or we're gonna need to revise our fee schedule or the code of ordinances so that there's, which is in the fee schedule is part of the code of ordinances so that you're charging fees on permits or
Doesn't that
or
involve
whatever.
both the PCC and the town council, right? The council can't change fees for zoning applications, for instance,
Well, they-
unilaterally, can they?
They could, yeah,
Oh, they
they-
could,
they're the
okay.
body that can, they wouldn't, they would
Okay.
always refer that, I would hope, they would always refer that out to the planning and zoning commission, that's
Okay,
past practice, but, yeah.
so then we really want to narrow our focus on the priorities for spending the
Right.
whatever money we have.
So in my absence, did we learn any more about when that becomes available?
That's another thing we have some say on. I guess we can recommend
Well-
they hold it forever or.
But it does.
So
seem
when they
like-
get their
I
permit.
mean,
I guess
unless
we
it's
can-
way down the road.
That really seems unreasonable, frankly.
Well, I mean,
think once they break ground, it seems to me that money should be available.
I would go along with that.
Well,
yes.
and I think, that would be a point of clarification, from them, it's a policy decision for them to make. You could make an argument stating why you feel a certain way, I
Well-
mean, things are going there's no reason to think that the standard's not gonna get built if they're.
Yeah, there's very
But
little
if we're
risk. in
gonna
it.
push them, then we have to be ready.
Well,
We have to have our
it-
application ready. I have a question. Who has to review and approve the application once we're done with it?
The
Town
code
council.
Town
Yeah,
council.
they have to do
So
everything.
if they haven't seen this and
so
reviewed it and approved it, then we shouldn't be asking for the.
it would be foolish for us to say, to start spending the money if we don't even have a mechanism for them to start spending the
I
money.
mean, to me, we gotta get the application done
Right.
and then push to
Yeah,
get
they
to
have-
the point
they have to
seven and
approve it
start getting
first
our
before
hands
we can
dirty
use
with
it, so-
seeing what people can come up with.
Well,
I
I
mean, the
guess,
other thing to me is, what's the most cost-effective strategy for generating good affordable housing? Is it? We looked at the 15%, which doesn't cost us anything, but we gotta build them
Right, we got,
a ton of units.
Well,
Is it?
encouraging nonprofit
renovation,
probably
or
would
is
be
it-
the,
Yeah,
So, yeah,
it's really, I think, I don't know about cost effect, but the best way to get things moving, I think we could, I was even suggesting that we have just a forum with nonprofit developers, frankly.
yeah,
There are any number of them
Yeah, yeah.
around. It's not just the housing authority.
yeah,
What do you need?
do we have places
This
where they
is-
could actually build stuff?
right.
Do we have infrastructure? Do we have,
Well,
you know, zone
They have the
They
thing-
have, they could certainly redevelop some stuff,
such as?
such as there are a lot of, I would call underdeveloped sites in our town. The housing authority has extra land. Renwood
Yeah, Renwood,
could be a place that needs to be redeveloped.
the one down on 195, I can't think of the name of it. Way down by
Oh,
the,
Foster Drive.
Down by
no,
High Hill
no,
Road?
this
there?
way,
Oh,
West Holland.
come on.
Norwegian.
No,
West Holland.
no,
On
no.
195?
Yeah, just before the, just what happens when you get old.
Oh, Renwood, right? No?
Yeah, Renwood.
Yeah, Renwood. Yeah,
yeah,
Renwood, yes.
Yeah, that's
exactly.
off of.
Yeah,
Yeah,
That's not private.
it is, but
but they can put in for,
they can
Yeah,
collaborate.
yeah, yeah.
You know,
That's what they need to, I think that's what we're looking for, in my opinion, is creative
Yeah.
redevelopment.
Right.
That's hard though, because you can't force people to
Right, you
play
can't.
together.
Well, we
Believe
can,
me, I've tried to. It doesn't
but
work.
we can,
Yeah.
if we can get the
Look
state
at
money and get
money.
things rolling, we might be able to create the right
Exactly.
conditions for.
Right,
to
exactly.
Stimulate this kind of.
So,
thing.
and then it's also, looking at maybe hosting some partnership events, maybe,
Right.
and like meeting with the folks at Renwood and seeing, what if they have plans for improvements or redevelopment, because if they decide to redevelop and increase density, they also have to comply with the affordable housing 15% set aside. So,
So we have to get our application though,
Yeah,
because
Well-
otherwise if we're meeting with them, they're gonna go, great, give me
Yeah,
the application.
right, we don't have it ready yet.
Yeah, that-
Have to have.
application, that's why I did this. One of the reasons I did this is because where do we give priority in the application? So.
Do we? Or we just let them apply and then we'll decide
Well,
whether they get
We
money?
have to decide what it is we think is important, and we give higher points. We're gonna give higher points to applications for age restricted housing, for example.
Mhm.
Are we gonna give higher
Right.
points? If, to accessible units for people
Can't
with
we-
disabilities, or units that target 60% of the median income?
So I would say that would benefit us if we could do it, but it
Yeah,
doesn't
this is
seem.
just. I just cleaned it up.
is this one that we included in the packet? or-
Yeah, but I just cleaned it up.
Okay, great.
Might need another one for both.
Okay, do we have email a version of this?
Do you, no, none of the one I just cleaned up, but I'll send you an email.
Okay. To
So
me-
right
to-
now, we have just one or more of the priorities. Oversee higher consideration. So you want to make that more specific.
Well, I think we have to formally, we talked around these issues, but we
Right.
don't. I took out of what P and Z had, but that's just.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I have to go. I have another meeting. So
Katie, thank you.
I will see you the next time. Good luck.
Objections to these priorities that we're talking about?
I have copies of them, and if I have any ideas, I will email you.
Right. Okay,
Thank you.
See ya.
Bye.
so it's a suggestion that I think it isn't just, I don't think we just want to wide open. We want to know, we want to be very clear what we want.
Right.
So if people know they get higher points for a particular kind of housing, and there's a market, what?
That will encourage those applications.
Yes.
I don't know if I'm a big fan of a point system. I think that might get us tangled up in ways we don't want to be tangled up. Maybe it does have the benefit of being concrete and specific. But it doesn't also can tie our hands in weird ways too.
That's why I was sort of thinking, I just don't think you're gonna, maybe I'm wrong, because I think it's pretty darn hard to develop affordable housing. So I think if something comes along that you can qualify as a good project, you want to be able to make sure you can move that money in and,
Yeah,
and move it
right.
fast. I think something you may want to start with as I look at this is just sort of a broad overall statement, like it is the goal of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, like it's probably pull it right from the ordinance. I've got to pull the ordinance though. And then say, you know, it's the goal of the town of Mansfield to have 10% of our units designated affordable.
Yeah, but they can be high-end affordable, that's been
That said,
my issue.
well, yeah, that said, should an application come forth to the committee that meets XYZ criteria, those should be given higher weight or more weight. I wouldn't do points,
Or higher consideration.
So as
it'd be
an
ranked
ex-
higher.
Okay.
Yeah, like higher versus,
as
I
an
don't want to get
Preference.
jammed up in, I don't want to get jammed up in court.
Right, no.
You know, somebody's suing us because, well, you know, we should have more points than them, this one should.
Right.
yeah, and how did you
Yeah.
get the points?
But as an exercise,
I think,
could we take these 6 that are listed and break them into 2 pots, higher and lower? Could
Well,
we do that?
Well,
as a
but
Committee.
but if we could say applicants who are meeting any of the following, satisfying any of the following needs will get consideration. And the more of these needs you satisfy, the higher your consideration is likely to be. But we don't have to, I mean, if it's a really good plan and all it has is good senior housing and it doesn't it doesn't do anything else, we still might like it and we still might want to give it money. And how do we decide how much money? Isn't that another issue that has to be? So we could give more
Well,
money or less
sort of.
money, or I don't know.
It's sort of stated, you know, in the front. Review criterion. So that sort of generically says reasonableness of project costs. Fund, agreed to which the funds have been leveraged, so that sort of hits it. I mean, if I read this and I was writing a proposal, those would be pretty clear to me that I have to do this.
Mhm.
So I don't know how much more information we have to give them there.
because I think if someone comes in and wants to spend if they're gonna build you 75 age restricted, you know, some age restricted housing available to 60,
Yeah.
you know, some 80%, some 60%. I think you probably would recommend writing the whole. check to them.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, I would.
Yeah, I mean, I think the council would too, and
Right.
then when the next one comes, you're gonna say, give me to the council, here's another opportunity, we need more money. And then the town goes to referendum, or if it's that important, that's what has to happen,
Right.
is a referendum. All sorts of funding mechanisms can happen to fund these types of
So
things.
you're going back to the original question, do you think we need to be more specific in the priorities? Or do you think what's listing the priorities is sufficient?
I wonder about the need to list accessible units, because aren't they required by law to have an accessible unit no matter what they build?
Not, I don't think necessarily.
Not,
No,
I
Not for
think,
people with disabilities.
there's certain triggers, like that's part of the building code actually,
yeah,
but,
I,
People over
I won't
fifty-five, you want
understate it, of course.
accessibility standards, you want, you know, people who can get their walker or wheelchair through, you know.
Yeah, I know, but that's
And
what I
which-
mean. Every apartment building I've ever seen, modern one, has wheelchair accessible.
Yeah, right.
Units with
ADA.
lower counters and all that ADA stuff. I just think that sort of comes
You
with the
think every-
territory.
Every apartment has.
not every,
No, not every-
I think they might have some, I know
Every
accessible
public one.
parking, I'm not sure, to be honest.
I think you're right, every public one has to have it.
Yeah, I think so too. But anyway, it doesn't hurt to listen. That's fine.
I'd be hard pressed to break these into 2 categories.
Yeah.
I think you can just say application addressing the following, you know, needs or something like that will be given higher consideration.
Yeah, that's fair. These are our highest, you know, these are our,
High priorities.
yeah,
Yeah, now-
areas of preference, if you will.
Now, but you know, the
Preferences.
knottier issue is what we think the trust fund should be, what funds from that should be allowed for. This is, you're talking about the newer rebuild at multifamily housing. no, I didn't mean CDBG. I was thinking of individual units there, so I'll just cross that out. This is what you're talking about in terms of the Renwood or another,
We could
Yeah.
pay, Renwood, we could pay White Oak condos to deed restrict their,
Right,
Yeah.
right.
we could give it whatever the calc, like you're doing, I always did open space and you do conservation easements, right? You're basically doing a restriction on a piece of land. And I'm sure with all the affordable housing stuff that's happening, there is someone that has valued what the cost is to restrict a piece of land for 40 years,
Yeah.
a unit for
Yeah,
40 years.
and the state, there might be state money for things like that.
So.
Yep.
Going back to the town's affordable housing plan. There were strategies in there, which I thought were good examples of how it can be useful.
I looked at those too. I didn't
Right.
really want to include them all. I took some of this out of what they had, actually. I didn't take any. The purchasing land is an intriguing one to me,
Right,
because that's often purchasing land that then becomes a site for affordable housing or the entertaining proposals. Because that's one of the problems with kind of having land, or having a site in a zone that has sewer. I mean, there's that, well, it's probably more than we could afford. But,
so these are pretty specific.
it's.
Establishing a cooperative home ownership program, and then there's a definition of it, right? I don't know what that was. Providing down payment assistance to income eligible homeowners.
Yeah. I'm personally
Providing
wouldn't go there,
funds
but-
to the Mansfield Housing Authority. Providing gap financing through grants or revolving.
That's
bonds or
really, the
non-
gap financing is
Yes.
huge.
But that's what
Yes.
we're really talking about.
Right.
yeah.
That's what we're talking, yeah.
That's
Providing
what, that's,
funding for maintenance, repair and rehabilitation, I think that's obvious. Establishing a neighborhood stabilization program that pays for the rehabilitation of owner occupied homes in exchange for putting a deed restricted.
I just don't think we have enough money for that. I mean, for all of these things, they're great ideas, but to get actually the number of units that we need. Whether it's going to be age restricted, whether it's going to be, mixed income for families. There isn't, the housing trust fund is going to leverage. It's going to
Right,
leverage
right,
other money.
right.
And,
If you're not gonna do much of what we got, that's the whole point. We need to get more in here.
Offering tax credits to property owner exchange.
yeah, I don't see us having
We-
that.
And the only one that's gonna.
like,
do
you
it,
don't have to
the-
pay
the
taxes
council
if
is
you
the one
restrict your property.
You can
for-
see it, I could see it if there were like an older couple that had a house and they couldn't afford to live in it anymore, and so they deed restricted and they work out a way, they stay there, it's low or no cost until, they're done with it. and then-
I don't know if there's any way to do that. CDBG does now, and they have a lien against the house.
That's for housing rehab.
Yes.
Housing rehab,
Yeah.
This is a really naughty problem.
yeah.
Naughty, yes.
Well,
So
I,
we do want to incorporate these priorities into the current draft.
yes.
We agree to that?
yes, and I think that could be done with some pretty simple language, actually. Before you get into the specifics. of
We're gonna
filling out
start
the form.
moving that Paul does.
Once I know what we're trying to say, I can usually say it, but I've gone to too much trouble.
Yeah.
But I'm not really clear on this point,
Yeah,
what we need to say.
I mean, it's almost like you need a goal statement. The town of Mansfield, kind of lofty. And in considering, we've established a trust fund. Some of it is, I'm pulling stuff right from the ordinance, actually. I wondered if that would,
You want to just send that again?
the ordinance is right on your web page.
Oh, it is,
Yeah,
okay.
the ordinance, the plan, I can send it. It's online. I thought this would be a little bit more helpful, but So the ordinance says the purpose is we hereby create a special fund to provide affordable housing in the town of Mansfield. The fund shall be known as the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, the hereinafter the fund. So expenditures from the fund. Activities so use of funds shall be limited to costs associated with activities to retain and or create affordable housing within the meaning of 8-30G. Such activities may be undertaken by the town or facilitated by the town through issuance of grants and or loans. Such activities include, but are not limited to, the investigation, appraisal, acquisition, construction, rehab, repair, fees, maintenance costs relating to parcels of land, both improved and unimproved, the acquisition, development rights, easements, the interest rates therein. I wonder if you start with, you know, kind of the language from the fund and then say expenditures from the fund shall be used for this. And then you put in some priorities.
Yeah, we will give
Right.
priority
Right,
to
right.
projects. We will give priority, excuse me, priority to projects that do the following. Target people with incomes at or below 60%
Yeah.
income.
Yeah.
Target people who are homeless or at risk of homelessness.
Right,
Provide age restricted housing for people 55 or older.
right.
Provide affordable housing for families with children. Provide accessible units. And the last one, number 6, I don't.
And then one that keeps
Okay.
it really broad,
Yeah.
just in case you
Yeah.
haven't thought of it, because you.
Know something
not
else you
be-
want.
Well, the only-
Right,
I didn't know whether we wanted to give priority to Mansfield housing, but that's.
Well, I don't know if we
I
can.
think you do.
actually.
Okay.
I mean, I think if someone. We want the best project that's gonna be out there, and we've already given,
But, you know,
we have the housing authority and we're really supportive of them, and if they came in with something that it would be fun, but
Yeah.
we don't want to exclude
Okay.
that. I
Right,
know.
right, right.
We can't. include-
So number 6, we'll remove that,
No, no.
we'll add something generic.
All right, so,
So
yeah, so I'll
encourage
tell you what,
free-
I'll look, and then I'll send it to the master draftsman, but, I'll look at the ordinance.
So it's right on the Affordable Housing
Website.
Committee website, on the left, it has, it has, you know, your affordable housing plan, the trust fund ordinance. Lots of FAQs. We can add more things if you want, but.
Okay. Okay,
So that's all gonna be in the preamble to the actual application.
Right.
And then the questions are just a simple matter of
How do you meet these criteria?
getting the information that meets the criteria and that explains your project.
well, and then I edited that somewhat, Kylie, instead of losing her, but, Kylie took the Stanford application because we decided that was when Michael and I, who else was at the meeting, and Will, that was better than the Fairfield application being used. It was much more to the point. And so we'll go back and take a look at that. All right. All right,
So to try to refocus here, you're gonna pull together some elements that we've just discussed on a piece of paper.
For the intro.
And for the preamble, as they call it.
Preamble.
And then you're gonna send those to me and I'm gonna pretty them up as Kylie would do. And I'm trying to focus them sharply. And then we
maybe
can,
I'll have done it really sharp.
oh, maybe so, in which case I'll just add a comma and we'll be done. There are writers that just need comments, by the way. Not very many though. Yeah, so that's a plan. I mean, I'm just trying to get.
What about the form itself?
Well, no,
After.
and then go into the,
Yeah, then get into all
Can
the.
we do that as a homework and provide comments? That way,
sure, you have the
opposed
latest
to like
draft.
wordsmithing as.
You have the latest.
Yeah,
draft.
it's just better, yeah.
Because that doesn't strike me as all that hard. Even if it misses something, it's something to put in front of an applicant and.
Is there any other
Yes, yes.
information you would like to provide?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
if we have more questions, we'll ask questions,
I mean, if they're asking for $1.7 million, you know,
not a lot of questions.
yeah.
A lot.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we're gonna make sure that, right. I think my suggestion is really as and I've said this before, make it so you want to make sure that if a good project comes in that is really something you never thought about, but will really achieve our goals, you're going to be able to be facile and fund it. So you have to have clear priorities, but they also have to be flexible.
Right.
And, you know, just as an example, a lot of these zoning applications, these special permit applications, they put a bunch of language at the beginnings of their applications about how to comply with the
Yep.
with the rules and stuff. And we want to encourage them to, applicants to be prepared to explain to us how this is going to be to the benefit of affordable housing in Mansfield.
Okay, I'm looking at our time, very conscious of that. Is there any way, let's just look at the summer schedule here, the calendar.
Oh my goodness.
We originally had said, I don't know why I had this down, but I did, I had a ton of meetings on June 8th. And then I could, get some of this redone. More time this week to do that. That's next
We're
week.
still gonna
Yeah,
meet on
next
the 8th.
Thursday,
Yeah. To do a work session,
I can do that.
I can do that.
all right, and we'll do it as a Zoom. Zoom?
No, I hate the June.
I hate
You
you.
hate Zoom?
I
All right.
despise Zoom.
We can meet here if they can get it.
Thank
to them.
you.
Can you meet, Michael?
If we can't, then I'll do
Yes.
Zoom, but
Dorothy, I can't see your face, but I think if you could coordinate with Dorothy, but we need a very specific agenda and we'll need that done by Monday. So that we
Yeah,
can
oh,
post
yeah, I
that.
can, yeah, the
yeah.
agenda is going to be,
I
Uh,
actually am not in the office tomorrow or Monday, so unless Jennifer can get Sandy to put that together.
Dorothy, you could do it on Tuesday and it's a special meeting, so if we have to,
Okay.
even it would be fine. So as long as you get it
Okay.
to the 6th.
Same time, 5 o'clock.
yeah.
Yeah, I just thinking about my schedule. I have distribution next week too, so.
right, and then it'll go down as a work.
Well, guys figure it out, you can do it. And the specific agenda will be to work on the
Application.
application.
Right,
Okay,
and that's,
so Dorothy, just let's do the agenda so Dorothy knows what to put on, because
Okay, so it's a special meeting, a work session, and the work session will focus on the draft of the Housing Trust Fund application.
right, continue working,
and that's it.
that's all, yeah.
Well, because we can cover all these issues.
That's enough.
It is-
Gotta get it done.
So, and then, depending on where we have a room, if we don't have a room, then you might be out of luck, but we have to confirm that we have a room for you, and it
Okay.
could be conference room A, B, or C.
Yeah, and then I don't have any other time in June. I don't know if most of you, but our first meeting in July, and you're gonna be in Iceland.
I'm gonna be in Iceland in middle of
6th,
July,
so July 6th is the next regular meeting.
July 7, then I'm okay. I have a
Okay,
dentist
July
appointment,
6th.
apparently.
July
Okay, so
5th.
we would meet July 6th, and then we can decide after that.
Yeah, I can meet on the
So you have July 6th and then August 3rd is your next.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
okay with me, but
I think I can do August 3rd too.
Okay, yeah. So, I mean, I think let's just, the special meetings will just, we'll figure that out as we go, but summer is, I will be here for both your regular meetings, but I have a lot of vacation to use up because I haven't used it.
Yes, you better use it.
Yeah, use
Yeah,
it.
use it or
Don't
lose
lose it.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lose it.
Okay, is there any other business anybody else wants to bring up?
I'm sure there are items that I want to talk about in the future. One being
I know you
specific,
had
I think we probably owe the PZC a sharper focus on how to calculate fee in lieu. They're sounds to me like they're willing to make a change, but they probably could use some help in figuring out what to do.
Well, I think we discussed this today, sorry, Paul and I talked earlier, and I think what would be great, and I think you need to you don't have to put your attorney hat on, because we do have an attorney that works for the town, and we also have a zoning consultant. So if you can think of, and I think it should be pretty simple, like it's just, right now, that fee in lieu calculation is pretty complicated, but if you can come up and adjust those percentages a little bit, or tie it to another, it has to be tied to a standard that is updated annual. And I think that annually, that's why they did it to that international building. Code.
Yeah.
Whether it's the right number or the right standard, I don't know. I think that's what, if you can direct them to do that, and then they can make sure it's legally sound.
There's a document, I think, that I sent.
I know you sent it to me and I groaned when I opened it.
Yeah, well, I think Mike was the one that originally found it.
Yeah, I read that a while ago.
But it's
It was
got three
kinda
different ways
complicated, I thought.
But
I haven't
one
read
of them
it
was
in a while.
called the affordability gap, which I sort of liked, which addressed the question of, what the developer gives up to let people come at lower rates, but it factors in their, what's the term? Damn, I can't think of it.
Am I?
But it was their cost, their profit, basically, their overhead, or no, it's not the right word.
Am I sort of, so I just keep going back to the calculation that we have, okay? It's way low, it's not,
But how do we decide what to jack the number up to? How do we just make?
well, you kind of like, I don't know, if there's a secret sauce out there, I think you just have to, and I think we started with something because not very many people do this, so we started with something, right?
Yeah.
So maybe
Well, can you, I mean, if I read Stanford's correctly, if you look at what is the completed cost per unit?
well, that's what this was. That's what the formula.
Well,
was.
no,
Well, but
that's
Stanford
not the
has for the
completed.
land and all
Right.
that stuff.
Yes, so, yeah, so if you say it's 400 and whatever, you say it's $350,000 per unit. And each year you update that based upon what the market is in terms of the final completed cost per unit.
So then how, if I'm a developer, how am I going to tell you that there's so many ways
Well, no, they don't tell you, but you said it, you say, this is, we're gonna say that the average unit of this, of this kind of housing costs $350,000 per unit. So we're gonna base the fee on that.
So that's what the International Building Code that we're tied to now talks about just building the structure. Could you add, to me, it's like, just up that percentage to higher, so
So
that
just make that up, just make it.
Capitalization rate, that was the term that they
Okay.
used to calculate affordability. The developer has a capitalization rate that was used as a factor to,
I don't know what that is, but.
well, I don't either, exactly. I have a rough idea. It has to do with their, what they expect to get back, their return on
And
investment.
who determines that?
Good question.
Yeah, like, because
I
I'm
would
not,
say a
'cause I
commercial
certainly wouldn't
lender, I
know.
would say a commercial lender determines that.
So then who?
You're gonna
and then
get
what?
financing for this giant building. They want to know.
I know, but then,
Much money's gonna
okay,
come in.
I'm the zoning enforcement official. And I'm the director of planning and I'm evaluating this. How do I know that this is,
Well, there may be a standard, an industry standard for.
right, I need an industry standard that I can look up that is gonna change from year to year,
Well, I
just like
think-
that building.
But just to
process.
follow up on what Jennifer's saying, so if it's based upon the cost of construction. So there must be a standard, and I would hope your consultant might know that, that would say, take that cost of construction and add to it a certain percentage that will take into account the cost of the cost of the land, the legal cost, et cetera, et cetera. Is it 15% higher? You think that consultant might know?
No, I don't think our zoning
No.
consultant would know. I think we'd have to look at, if there's something else that another town has done, I think we really want to
Yeah,
start with
well,
that. I
that-
don't think we're gonna make it up. I think,
Okay, all right.
otherwise, I think we just,
Sounds like we need to do more homework.
Well,
It's just
that's what I was
basic
getting at.
homework,
That's what I
not-
was getting at. It's
Uh,
Clearly a complicated brain herder.
yeah, because I'm thinking capitalization, who's gonna certify to me that it's not just like,
But this study,
Right?
this academic study that I was reading cited it as something that's done somewhere.
Oh, well, good.
So-
Okay, if we can tie it to that, then great.
I forget what.
I
town it was.
read that a long time ago.
North Carolina or somewhere.
It probably went over my head, so now I have 0%.
You read it 4 or 5, you read it 4 or 5 times.
Yeah, we need a motion to
Move to
adjourn.
adjourn.
Okay. And,
I'm gonna,
We'll second it on favor.
I'm going to send this, when I get home and.
Bill, you
I
had
need
an
them out.
outstanding
I'm
trip.
gonna
Huh?
tidy up this-
Yeah, we had a good
And you want me to put it, and
It was
just,
cold.
I.
Let me see it.
Did you
Yeah.
back accordingly? or-
I'm sorry.
Oh,
Are we're all set then?
Adjourned at 6:48.
See you for 3
Dorothy.
days. huh?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dorothy.
With
Okay,
me and
Dorothy.
Sandy Ferrand, and then she'll